How many of you can say they recognize what movie that song is from? Lion King, right? Yeah. Well, fun fact about The Lion King is that in the year it was released, it finished as the highest grossing film in the world. I, like many people here, like to watch movies, whether that be in the movie theater or Netflix, which I assume is what most people do now. I've been watching movies ever since I was a little kid, and I have quite a collection now. And I recently have done research on the study of movies, and I've learned a lot about it. Movies in the movie industry have grown a lot since it first begun. From black and white films to completely CGI, there's been a clear change. This will be about the history of movies, including the genre, the audience, the length, and the uses of film. First, I'd like to talk to you about the history of film. According to James Burns' article, American Film originated in Paris in 1895. The first films were black and white and acted as visual effects rather than actual film. By the 1960s, Americans were dominating the film franchise, but were also declining in popularity due to actors. Revised genres brought film back to life, and audiences to theaters to films such as Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Exorcist, and The Godfather. In the 1980s, cassette players were introduced and threatened the franchise, but in the end benefited them due to audiences coming back to see movies multiple times. In 1995, film celebrated its centenary anniversary, becoming one of the most powerful cultural forces on the planet. Now that you learned a little bit about the history of film, I'd like to talk about the length of film. The first films were very short, rarely lasting more than a few minutes. With that said, the majority of films didn't even exceed a minute, according to Tim Dirk's article, The History of Film. Today we see that all movies are over an hour long, and the majority pass 2 hours. The length of films are heavily criticized, though, due to the fact that there is a fine line between short and too long. Next, I would like to talk to you about the audiences and the genre in the film industry. While there was no definitive genres at the beginning history of film, the silent era, as it was called, took hold in the early 20s and ended in the late 20s. Silent film was just nobody talking, it just played it out. Once the silent era ended, a majority of film genres started to take place and earn a place in audiences' hearts. Some of them are Western, horror, which is my personal favorite, melodrama, and comedy. After the 1950s, science fiction came into play, and after that, more and more genres started coming. Now, audiences have been around since the beginning of film, but as said by Byrne, quote, it wasn't until 1895 that film owners started charging audiences to view films, unquote. While genres have changed, also have audiences. Different audiences were targeted for different genres. Sci-fi targeted teens and children, and while the rest of the genres, such as action or targeted young adults, at least in the 50s. Today we see that all different types of audiences are being targeted, from CGI movies to target little kids, to PG-13 movies for teenagers, to R-rated movies for 17 years and older, anybody, and to classics for older people who would like to see a movie they saw when they were kids. Finally, I'd like to talk to you all about the use of film. At first, film was used just for entertainment purposes. According to the article World War II Movies, when World War II started, films were being used as propaganda for the war effort. Today, films are being used for much more than entertainment. According to Deborah Elliott's article, Teach with Movies, many schooling programs are trying to use film to teach kids in school. The point of this was to use popular film to teach everyday subjects in class. Also, it's supposed to help teach ethics. Now that you've learned much about film, I'd like to bring this to a close. And two of these movies I brought was Lone Survival and a 4-disc horror collection, which can help show how movies have changed over time. From when movies first started, you had cassette players and such, and you could get one movie. Then DVD players came out, and you could have one movie on them. And now you can get things that have 4 movies on them, and even Blu-ray and Blu-ray 3D. And this also ties in with the length. Most horror movies don't last over 2 hours, while most action films go 2 hours and farther. I have talked to you about the length of film, the history, the audience, genres, and the uses of film. And I hope that you've learned something from this. And during finals week, if you're a little bit stressed, just watch a movie.